as experts often, do many of you guys testify in court? Okay, you know the idea that, I remember when I was clerking 35 years ago, a young lawyer walked into our offices and said, the shortest appellate argument is, the facts are in the record, the law's in the books, let justice be done. Well, a net opinion is kind of like that. You say, I looked at it, it's worth $300,000, and you give no basis. Well, so the court in the Gallatin case said, you can't just come in with a net opinion with, this is what the value is. Why? Because I said so. So that's not for you guys. This is very interesting. Anybody know when Nevada became a state? Anybody care? 1864. Now, I haven't researched it, but I assume that it became a state. It joined the Union. 1864, if you recall or if you know, the Civil War was still well underway. And what they produced in Nevada was gold and silver. So there was probably a keen interest in the Union in bringing in Nevada into the Union, since it would start helping the economy of the North. And if you think about Nevada, it's largely desert. So there's no mining, there's only mining, there's no farming, no manufacturing. Nobody thought about Las Vegas as being a major economic driver. So the legislature in Nevada passed legislation that said that mining operators could take through eminent domain adjacent properties to have an efficient, effective mining operation. And it was challenged and it went up to the Nevada Supreme Court. And the Nevada Supreme Court said that, in essence, we don't have agriculture, we don't have manufacturing. Mining is critical to the economic vitality of the state. And toward the bottom it says, the present prosperity of the state is entirely due to the mining developments already made, and the retired people of the state are directly interested in having the future developments unobstructed by the obstinate action of any individual or individuals. One thing you know is somebody will be obstinate. There's a Macy's in Queens. If you know, there was no eminent domain involved in it, but there was one property owner that held out, and the building had to be completely redesigned, and the property is still there. When Trump was building one of the casinos, I guess in the 70s in Atlantic City, one property owner held out. People can be obstinate. Maybe for economic reasons, maybe it's for yes?
There's also a bar in Manhattan the same way.
Yes, P.J. Clark's, where Woody Allen used to go when he was rapping. Where are you from, by the way?
Spring Lake Heights.
Spring Lake Heights. Nice community. When do you think that case was decided?
When?
Victor, what do you think? 1876. So these issues aren't new. It depends whose ox got worried. Just Goldsmith's rule of political reality. Lincoln said you can't fool all the people all the time. Goldsmith says you can't please all the people all the time. And that's reality. As I said, Morristown is the county seat of Morris County, population of about 17,000. It's had its ups and downs over the years. It is as I also said, it was Washington's campsite for two winters during the American Revolution. Because from there, you would be on the other side of two sets of mountains, and the people in the mountains could know whether the British Army was approaching. Jackie Hollow, right? Brutal, the most brutal winter in a century. And this is just to give you some examples of redevelopment. These are surface parking lots. If you know Morristown, if you don't know Morristown, this is the town square. It's one of the few towns in New Jersey, of the 566, that has a town square, and it gives the town a certain charm. It's the county seat, so this is all county administration buildings. This was a Bamberger's, which was a downtown department store. Macy's, it became Macy's, and in 1993 it closed. And and left 135,000 square feet vacant in the downtown. These are surface parking lots, and if you think about their proximity to the downtown, good use of land or not? Wasted space. And in the context of disclosure, my client owned this property and this property, and actually Macy's owned this property, and we had a cooperative agreement with them for about 20 years that they would lease it to us and we would operate as an integrated parking facility. And when Macy's just got out of bankruptcy, probably in the late 90s, we bought it for them before they figured out how much it was. They were Federated, it was already acquired by Federated there, I think in Cincinnati, Ohio, and they didn't pay much attention to it. But surface parking lots, which really are a minimal use. Now, anybody know the difference in terms of costs of construction versus operation of structured versus surface parking? Interested? Keep it up, wake up. Surface parking lot to design, putting aside property acquisition costs, to design surface parking to deal with drainage, lighting, landscaping, pavement. Typical standard in the industry is about $3,000 per space. For structured parking, interestingly, as a young lawyer, I did this project. It's called Headquarters Plaza in Morristown. It was an old urban renewal project that started in the 60s and was completed in the 90s. But when this garage, there's a 2,500 space parking garage there, when that was contracted in 1978, 79, the cost was $10,000 a space. We built a parking facility over here, which I'll show you in a minute, and that cost us $11,000 a space. And that was in 1999. So in 20 years, the cost of structured parking had only gone from about $10,000 to $11,000. Since 1999, up until about 2006, China had a burgeoning economy, Brazil had a burgeoning economy, and the US had a burgeoning economy, and the cost of structured parking went from $10,000 or $11,000 to $20,000 a space. So that's $20,000 a space versus $3,000 a space for structured parking versus surface parking. So there's a significant economic differential. This is just from the outside. This parking structure was built on the smaller lot. Ground leased, again, it's a parking authority. And the parking authorities in New Jersey have a good deal of flexibility and power to deal with economic redevelopment projects. We ground leased a footprint here, and the first market rate apartments were built in Morristown, 131 apartments, 11,000 square feet of office space. Just to give you a sense, this is where the apartments were built here, and the parking garage was built here. And we've been effective. Someone else acquired this building and most of the properties here facing the town square. And originally our concept was to build a parking garage here. And he said, why don't you build a parking garage here? And we said, we're interested. We owned the land, but he owned this land and this land. And we said, well, if we build a parking garage behind your building, which obviously will provide significant value to you, what will you do for us? He said, I will give you that L-shaped piece of property at no cost. And we got that. And the parking garage went from a less efficient to a far more efficient 3-bay parking garage. Parking garages are built on bases of bays. 60 feet gives you 20 feet of parking, 20-foot aisle, 20 feet of parking. It's a very efficient use of structured parking space. So we have 3 bays, we have a ramp up the middle. It's also more comfortable. Anybody park in this garage out here? How'd you like it? Did anybody walk down the stairs to the back entrance? Did you notice that there isn't a sign as you're going from the 3rd level down to tell you that you have to get off at the next flight of stairs? That's pretty poor planning. I mean, look, that may have been their engineering reality, but just put a sign where people can see entrance to the hotel, because if you're coming down the stairs, you're not going to see that sign. Okay, anyway, that's my gripe of the morning.